Have you ever looked up at the night sky on Christmas Eve and wondered how a single man could bring so much joy to the world? We all know his red coat, his white beard, and his flying reindeer. But did you know that long before he lived at the North Pole, he was a real boy who walked the dusty streets of an ancient town? Today, we are going to tell you a story that spans centuries and continents. It is a tale of miracles, generosity, and a magic that grew stronger with every act of kindness. This is the true story of Santa Claus. Our journey begins not in the snow, but under the warm sun of the Mediterranean, nearly 1700 years ago. In a town called Patara, in what is now modern-day Turkey, lived a young boy named Nicholas. Patara was part of the vast Roman Empire, a place of marble columns and salty sea breezes. Born to wealthy and noble parents, Theophanes and Joanna, Nicholas was a child filled with an unusual grace. While other children chased after toys and games, Nicholas found his joy in quiet reflection and the stories of holy men. His name, Nicholas, meant people's victor, a foreshadowing of the champion he would one day become. But life, even in beautiful Patara, had its shadows. When Nicholas was just 14, a terrible plague swept through the region. The streets fell silent, and sorrow visited many homes, including Nicholas's own. He lost both his parents to the disease, leaving him a wealthy orphan, alone in a big house that suddenly felt too empty. Yet, in his grief, Nicholas did not turn inward. Instead, he looked outward. He decided to give away his inheritance to those who needed it more, seeking a holy life. One night, under the canopy of glittering stars, Nicholas learned of a neighbor, a good man who had fallen into desperate poverty. The situation was so dire that the man could not afford to feed his 3 daughters, and he feared he would have to sell them into servitude just to keep them alive. Nicholas knew he had to act, but his heart was humble. He wanted no praise for his charity. So, wrapping himself in a dark cloak to hide his face, he crept through the deserted streets of Patara. The town was asleep. The only sound was the gentle lapping of the sea against the shore. Nicholas approached the poor man's open window. With a silent prayer, he tossed a leather purse filled with gold coins into the room. It landed with a soft thud, right inside a shoe left by the window. He vanished into the night like a whisper. The next morning, the poor man found the gold. Tears of gratitude filled his eyes. It was enough to save his eldest daughter and see her happily married. Inspired by the joy he had caused, Nicholas returned a second time, under the cover of darkness. Another purse of gold flew through the window, this time landing in a sock hung by the fire to dry. This gift saved the second daughter. But the poor man, overwhelmed by this mysterious grace, was determined to find his benefactor. When Nicholas came a third time, with a purse twice as heavy for the youngest daughter, the man was waiting. He chased the cloaked figure down the street until he caught him. When the hood fell back, revealing the young face of Nicholas, the man fell to his feet in thanks. Nicholas, shy and humble, made the man promise to keep this secret until after his death. And so, the legend of the gift-bringer was born, in the quiet, secret acts of a young man's kindness. Nicholas eventually left Patara and traveled down the coast to the city of Myra. He arrived as a stranger, seeking peace, but destiny had other plans. The city was in mourning, their bishop had died, and the church elders were struggling to find a successor. One night, a senior bishop heard a voice in his dream, "Wait for the one who will try to enter the church secretly at dawn. His name is Nicholas." And so it happened. As the first light of dawn painted the sky in pastel pinks and oranges, Nicholas approached the church doors. When the bishop stopped him and asked his name, he replied simply, "My name is Nicholas, and I am your servant." To his astonishment, he was led inside and proclaimed the new Bishop of Myra. The boy bishop, as he was sometimes called, became a champion for his people. Years passed, and Nicholas's legend grew, not just for his kindness, but for the miracles that seemed to follow him. Once, a terrible famine struck the land. The earth was dry, and the people were starving. But Nicholas, with his unwavering faith, went down to the harbor where ships from Alexandria were docked, heavy with grain. He pleaded with the captains to share their cargo. Though they feared the wrath of the authorities if the grain was short, Nicholas promised them that if they shared, they would not suffer. Reluctantly, they unloaded enough grain to feed the entire city. And when those ships finally reached their destination, the captains were astounded to find their holds were still full, not a single grain was missing. It was a miracle of abundance, a sign that generosity never truly depletes us. Nicholas was also the protector of sailors. One day, a ship was caught in a violent storm on the Mediterranean. The waves were like mountains, crashing down upon the wooden deck, tearing at the sails. The sailors, terrified, cried out for help. Suddenly, amidst the howling wind and spray, a man appeared on the deck, an old man with a white beard. He moved with calm authority, tightening the ropes, steadying the rudder, commanding the sea to be still. As the storm faded into a gentle breeze, the man vanished. When the sailors later reached Myra and went to the church to give thanks, they saw Bishop Nicholas and instantly recognized him as their savior. They fell to their knees, but Nicholas, ever humble, pointed upwards, telling them to thank God, not him. Time moved on, as it always does. Nicholas grew old, his beard turning the color of snow, his back bending under the weight of years of service. When he finally passed from this world, his spirit did not fade. In fact, it was only the beginning. His tomb in Myra became a place of wonder, said to exude a sweet-smelling liquid called manna that could heal the sick. But how did the saintly Bishop of Myra become the Santa Claus we know today? It is a journey that took him all across Europe. After his death, stories of his kindness spread. He became the patron saint of sailors, archers, repentant thieves, and most importantly, children. In the Middle Ages, people began to celebrate his feast day on December 6th. It was said that on the eve of this day, Saint Nicholas would visit homes. In some places, he would ride a white horse, in others, he would climb down chimneys. He would leave treats, toys, sweets, or fruit, in shoes and stockings left out by hopeful children. However, the world was changing. In the 16th century, a great religious change known as the Reformation swept through Europe. Many new churches stopped praying to saints, and for a while, it seemed Saint Nicholas might be forgotten in these lands. But the people loved him too much to let him go. In England, he took on a new form as Father Christmas, a jolly figure in green or red robes who represented peace and good cheer. In the Netherlands, he remained Sinterklaas, arriving by boat from Spain, riding a white horse, and carrying a book that listed the names of naughty and nice children. It was this Dutch figure, Sinterklaas, who crossed the ocean to the New World. When Dutch settlers founded New Amsterdam, which we now know as New York, they brought their beloved gift-bringer with them. In the melting pot of America, Sinterklaas's name softened and changed. From Sinterklaas to Sans Claus, and finally, to Santa Claus. In the early 19th century, writers and poets began to shape the Santa we recognize. Washington Irving wrote fanciful stories of a tubby St. Nicholas flying over the treetops in a wagon. But it was a quiet professor named Clement Clark Moore who gave us the clearest picture. In his famous poem, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," written in 1822, he described a jolly old elf with a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. He gave us their names: Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. He described Santa coming down the chimney, his clothes tarnished with ashes and soot, his eyes twinkling, his dimples merry, his cheeks like roses, and his nose like a cherry. This was no longer just the tall, thin Bishop of Myra. This was a magical being of pure joy. As his legend grew, Santa needed a home. The warm hills of Turkey and the workshops of Spain were left behind for something more secluded. First, it is said he moved to Iceland, then to the snowy forests of Lapland in Finland, where he recruited the shy, magical elves to help him make toys. These ancient creatures of the north were skilled craftsmen, perfect companions for a saint who needed to make millions of gifts. But as the world grew and more children began to believe, even Lapland became too small. Sometime in the late 19th century, Santa Claus established his permanent, secret kingdom at the very top of the world, the North Pole. It was the artist Thomas Nast who first showed us this world. In his drawings, we saw Santa in his workshop, checking his list, sewing dolls, and building toys. Nast gave Santa his iconic red suit with the white fur trim and the wide black belt. He showed us a Santa who was busy, dedicated, and incredibly organized. And it was around this time that whispers of a companion began to surface. A kindly, gray-haired woman, often seen baking cookies or managing the household, Mrs. Claus. Though we don't know her first name, some say Martha, some Mary, we know she is the heart of the North Pole, keeping everything running smoothly while Santa dreams up new toys. The challenges of the North Pole were great. The winters were dark and stormy. In 1939, a particularly bad blizzard threatened to cancel Christmas. The snow was so thick Santa couldn't see the reins in front of him. It was then that he discovered a young reindeer named Rudolph, who had been teased for his glowing red nose. Santa saw the light not as an oddity, but as a gift. He asked Rudolph to lead the sleigh, his nose cutting through the fog like a beacon. And so, the team was complete. Today, Santa Claus is more than just a historical figure or a storybook character. He is a spirit that transcends borders and beliefs. He is the champion of generosity, the guardian of childhood innocence. Some skeptics, like the Friends of Little Virginia O'Hanlon in 1897, might say he isn't real. But as the famous editorial replied to Virginia, he exists as certainly as love and generosity and devotion exist. The most real things in the world are those that neither children nor men can see. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, think of the boy Nicholas in the warm sun of Patara. Think of the gold coins landing in the shoes. Think of the bishop calming the storm. And think of the sleigh flying silently over the snowy rooftops, guided by a red light. The story of Santa Claus is a story of how a single act of kindness can echo through history, growing louder, brighter, and more magical with every passing year. And remember, he lives, and he lives forever, continuing to make glad the heart of childhood. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the mists of time. If you believe in the magic of giving, let us know in the comments below, what is the most magical gift you have ever received? Don't forget to like and subscribe to Tales of the Dream for more stories that whisk you away to worlds of wonder. Sweet dreams!